more of us, and it's not over.
Take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
You can check out our website at truthertalk.com. So, hey Virstyne, we're going to talk to Jack Wolfson today, Dr. Jack, the cardiologist. Are you excited about this one?
I am, because I just love his no-nonsense, attitude. It's wonderful.
It is really good.
Humorous.
I know.
It's wonderful. So, yeah, I think I'm hoping he'll have a good sense of humor. I'm guessing he would. And we like to laugh, so, for sure.
His right. I mean, we were really impressed with he wrote an article that appeared, I think it was in Vaccine. I'm going to look it up really quick while we're talking because I'm not positive of the source where I saw it. But it was basically just, it was after he had appeared on some public TV locally, and he'd spoken out against vaccines, and that basically there was a huge backlash because this guy's a cardiologist, and so they were saying da-da-da-da about him. It was just really scathing things, and then even there was sort of a witch hunt to try and take his license away, which was unsuccessful. So
yeah,
which is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, in light of all of the doctors that are been dying and stuff, that's actually a good victory. I mean, I'm just saying, it seems like with Andrew Wakefield, they were able to get his license and stuff. They were able. I mean, it didn't really warrant any. It was very. What's the word am I looking for? It was undeserving. He didn't deserve to have his license taken away, but they found a way to take his license anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
And, I don't know of any other cases like that recently, but I consider this to be a victory, It's very, I thought that they might try and take him down, with the licensing and everything, trying to get his license, because this is how they go after doctors who speak out. And he also just seems to be somebody that just slipped through the cracks, because you don't hear doctors on TV, on mainstream media, giving their opinions about vaccination. They always try and spin it to make it look like, it's just parents that are mad that their children are vaccine injured, or some dude in a tinfoil hat, or, I'm not saying that all people from the South, or I'm not saying people from the South are stupid, but they play into that stereotype of getting people with Southern accents, and because people in their mind, that's what they've been trained to think, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly, and it's true, and he sounds knowledgeable. I mean, he doesn't, he's not some kind of supposed alternative healthcare practitioner. He's actually a cardiologist. He's actually, been to medical school, because they'll just, anybody who, not to say that alternative medicine doesn't have value. I mean, it's not.
It's actually better, I would say, but
it's actually better.
If you want to go down.
But according to the mainstream, the way that they look at it, if you are an alternative practitioner, they kind of just basically write you off. You're
a quack doctor.
Yeah, you're a quack doctor, and you're going to be on quack watch if you try and cure people with vaccine injuries. So we'll get rid of you. And then, but he didn't come off that way at all, and he sounds very knowledgeable, and he's a smart guy. And I was looking for the article that he wrote. It was in the Vaccine Impact. So if you go to vaccineimpact.com, you'll find it. It says Arizona cardiologist responds to critics regarding measles and vaccines. Because he said basically it wasn't even a big deal. Kids can get the measles and they can, be rid of it. And and speaking of that, it's so funny. there was this thing circulating around about a story, a hospital where they were on lockdown, and they were like, they were basically, not letting, everything was on quarantine over a few people that came in with the chicken pox.
Oh, what? Shut up.
I know, right?
It's like outbreak. It's like they're trying to make outbreak happen when it's not.
They make every disease that they have a vaccine for seem like it's a big deal, and then never talk about diseases that aren't a big deal, and never talk about the diseases that they inject you with when they give you these vaccines. It's it's just, it's such a big hoax. And then, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and then they're all going on about how successful the Ebola vaccine is. It's been a 100% success. How? How do you guys know that? They just put out the Ebola vaccine, and they're like, it's 100% successful. Really? Like, how do you know?
I'm not getting it.
You just gave it to people. I don't think it's in the U.S. yet, but you just gave it to people, and so immediately they're exposed to Ebola, like right after that. They don't even know if what they're diagnosing is Ebola. Like, I suggest people go look at John Rappaport's work on that. It's like, it's a hoax-y-do. They use the same kind of testing that they do for HIV testing, the PCR system. So who's to say that that it's even Ebola? Like, do they even know what they're talking about? But they're saying it's 100% successful. Nothing's ever 100% successful, especially not in the pharmaceutical world.
Yeah.
They're lucky if they get like 10%, 12%. It's just so. No,
it's just they lied like they always do. Right. That's what it is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right. It's exactly. They just lie and they just do whatever they say, whatever they want.
And then when they're finished doing that, they just lie some more. Like, it's like, I can't even, one of my friends was like, you don't watch TV anymore? And I was just like, no. Like, you don't watch the news anymore? I'm like, no.
Right.
It's just lies. It's all lies. And I never thought I'd get to the point where I would say that because, I used to think there was some people that were like that. They're like, oh, they're just bitter or whatever. I guess I'm bitter because I've been lied to for so long. And, it's like a girlfriend that's, being lied to her boyfriend all the time. And you don't know when he's telling the truth after he gets caught. So they always lie. They don't research. They hire people that read teleprompters. They don't hire investigative journalists. They fire them according to Cheryl Atkins and Amber Lyons and Ben Swan. That's why they left the mainstream media and started their own alternative source of information because they just saw how it was just so contrived and put together. I don't know. So going back to Dr. Wolfson, it was so refreshing. It was funny. I was rolling. He was not hold back. I loved it. It because people need to hear that.
Yeah, it was pretty much. He was just saying, that the anger that was directed towards him was misguided. So here, let me read what he said.
Okay.
I'll read a little bit of what he said here because I have it in front of me. So he starts off talking about the recent interview he did. It was on NBC Phoenix. All right. So he said, I want to address all this misguided anger and see if we can redirect it where it belongs. Number one, being angry at food companies, sugar, cereals, donuts, cookies, and cupcakes leads to millions of deaths per year. At its worst, chickenpox killed 100 people per year. If those chickenpox people didn't eat cereal and donuts, they may still be alive. Call up Nabisco and Kellogg's and complain. Protest their products. Send them hate mail. Number two, be angry at fast food restaurants. Tortured meat burgers, pesticide fries, and hormone milkshakes are the problem. The problem is not hepatitis B, which is a virus contracted by drug users and those who sleep with prostitutes, and you want to inject that vaccine into your newborn. Number three, be angry at the companies who make your toxic laundry detergent, fabric softener, and dryer sheets. You and your children are wearing and breathing known carcinogens. They cause cancer. Call Bounce and Downey and let them know. These products kill more people than mumps, a virus which actually doesn't cause anyone to die. Same with hepatitis A watery diarrhea. Number four, be angry at the companies spewing pollution into our environment. These chemicals are heavy metals, are known to cause autism, heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disease, and every other problem. Worldwide, these lead to tens of millions of deaths every year. Measles deaths are a tiny fraction compared to pollution. Number 5, be angry at your parents for not breastfeeding you, co-sleeping with you, and stuffing your face with Dominoes so they can buy more Tide and finish the laundry. Breastfeeding protects your children more from many infectious diseases. Number 6, be angry with your doctor for being closed-minded and not disclosing the ingredients in vaccines. Not that they read the package insert anyway. They should tell you about the aluminum, mercury, formaldehyde, aborted fetal tissues, animal proteins, polysorbate 80, antibiotics, and other chemicals in the shots. According to the Environmental Working Group, newborns contain over 200 chemicals as detected by cord blood. Maybe your doctor feels a few more chemicals injected into your child won't be a big deal. Number 7, be angry with the cable companies and TV manufacturers for making you and your children fat and lazy. Not wanting to exercise or play outside. Lack of exercise kills millions more than polio. Where are all those 80-year-olds crippled by polio? I can't seem to find many. Number 8, in fact, be angry with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates for creating computers so you can sit around all day blasted with electromagnetic radiation reading posts like this. Number 9, be angry with pharmaceutical companies for allowing us to be living the above life can be treated with drugs. Correctly prescribed drugs killed thousands of people per year. The flu kills about no one. The vaccine never works. Finally, be angry with yourself for not opening your eyes to the snow job and brainwashing which have taken over your mind. You never asked the doctor any questions. You never asked what is in a vaccine. You never learned about these benign infections. Let's face it, you don't really give a crap what your children eat. You don't care about your chemicals in your life. You don't care if you sit around all day watching TV or playing video games. All you care about is drinking your Starbucks, your next plastic surgery, your next cocktail, your next affair, and your next sugar fix. This post was created with love with the idea of creating a better world for our children and future generations. Anger increases your risk of suffering a heart attack. Be careful.
Dang!
Right? I know, right? I couldn't stop. I was going to just read a couple, but they were just all so good.
Oh my God, that was great, yeah.
It was amazing.
That, yeah. You know what? I didn't know about the laundry sheets. Not that I use those a lot anyway, but I didn't know that. I'm going to not use those. I learned something new.
I mean, there are some you can buy. They're a little more expensive, and I think there's even ways to make them. But it's if you do still like your laundry sheets, that you like the fabric softeners. But anyway, it's a really good piece, and it's well written, and I appreciate his directness. How he's just letting people have it.
Because hypocrisy is appalling, and it's insulting, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this too, that there are people that would do more research into their baby's nursery than vaccines.
Oh, right.
Or they'll research a house or a car or the latest newest electronic device before they research what goes into their body. It's ridiculous, and how people think it's like evolution. That we have all this cool stuff. But I really, the more I get into this, to see that we're actually devolving.
Right. Yeah, we're clearly devolving.
As a species.
And, yeah, we are clearly devolving. And he points out all of these things and all of these ways in which we have been devolving, I think, and talking about, how we basically traded healthy lives for convenience. I think it's really down to it.
Yeah.
And we've, because the more that we innovate, and I say that with quotations, you guys can't see me, but the more that we innovate, we create things that are trying to make our lives easier. And so, while it might be
that's making us lazier.
It's making us lazier, and it's making us sicker.
And complacent.
And what else it is, what it is not doing is making us happier. Because people, how much is the industry for psychotherapy and people that need, have mental disorders or, sure, some of that, a lot of that, I'm sure, is caused by these things in our environment. But we're not helping ourselves by trying to make our lives more convenient. We're not helping ourselves by, gosh, I'm so tired after I get off work, so let me just get some fast food and then we'll go sit down on the couch and that way I can relax for a few minutes. That's really the mindset. I don't think, most of the time it's not that parents aren't, thinking straight away that they're hurting their kids. I think that they have the idea of, well, a little bit's not going to hurt. I just can't do it. I just can't cook dinner tonight. I can't do it. I'm just so tired. I can't do it. But I think that comes down to the way that we live our lives now. I mean, we're not, we're sitting in front of computers and we're doing all these things, and then we get home and we're tired, but we haven't had any exercise. We haven't exerted ourselves in any way. It's a weird life now. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is. You're right. You're very correct about that. Yeah.
No, so I don't know. But he was refreshing, and we were really excited to get him on. So it's been.
Alice is excited too.
She's very excited. Yeah. We'll have to tell him that we have a baby co-host. But I think he's got kids, so he'll probably be understanding about that. But yeah, he's really vocal, and he's been great. And his family is his wife is also a doctor. She's a chiropractor, and so they run the practice together, and they work together. And it sounds like they're just a good family. And they have good look at at their family values and how to raise their kids and stuff. So it's going to be exciting to talk to him. And I was really upset when I heard that he was being chased down like that. I thought, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't surprised, though. As soon as I saw that interview, I'm like, oh, they're coming for him. Yeah. No, I mean, my all goodness and good, energy was sent out to him. I wasn't, happy that you just know how they work now. It's not like even a surprise,
Right, that it's just like trolls and things like that that are just coming after people. And, we did a show about Dr. Bradstreet, one of the doctors that was the holistic, or in the group of the holistic group that was built. He wasn't a holistic doctor. He wasn't an alternative practitioner. He was a regular MD. But he did use a lot of holistic methods when treating his kids, because he was working with kids with autism, and they're extremely sensitive, and they're not really, there aren't really any pharmaceuticals that can help treat them. But, where was I going with this? Oh, I mean, I guess that we were just, saying how people like that are very susceptible to being kind of demonized or taken out or things like that. And there was some, I guess, rumor going around about Dr. Bradstreet. They ended up searching his office the day before he died, and they were looking for the GCMFA, MAF treatment that he was getting off of what they had searched for him. And somebody told me, and I'm not going to say who, but somebody told me that she knows the person who blew the whistle on him, had the FDA come in and search his office. So someone had called in, I guess apparently had made a mistake saying that he was giving out illegal treatments or something like that to kids with autism. And so they sent in those people to do that raid on his office. And the person who they said was somebody from the neurodiversity movement. It was like a speaker.
Wow, I hope she fucking burns, or he fucking burns in hell.
Right.
Like 1,000 times over.
I mean, I don't know.
If that's true,
if that's true,
that person needs to pay greatly. She's fucked up so many people's lives, or I'm saying she, I don't know if it's he or she, but that person has really fucked up numerous amounts of people's lives forever. So, I mean...
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I think that there are people that feel like they're actually doing a good thing by doing that, and then I think that there's some people who are just so caught in themselves that they don't really see anything beyond themselves. Maybe, that person thought they were blowing the whistle, or outwardly think, oh, well, he's doing the wrong thing, because they've been trained to think that, cures should only come from the allopathic industry. So anybody that doesn't use that route is automatically a bad person. But at the same time, I mean, how do you just call somebody, how do you do that to somebody without really trying to see what they're about?
Yeah.
I would really try and make sure, you know, like they just don't realize the gravity of the situation. How far is their head up their ass? Not, you know?
Yeah. It's true. I mean, and as I said in my article, that, you know, with the that I wrote about this, some of the neurodiversity people are really offended by even the idea of a cure. You know, so the whole idea, so they probably had very little knowledge of what treatments he was using, or whether they were safe or not.
Yeah, because they're not going to even bother. They're just going to be like, oh, well,
right.
my child is happy on numerous amounts of drugs the way they are, so...
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, so
don't judge me, because I'm just going to give my kid Ritalin, Risperdal, and whatever the hell, just, you know, because I love him the way he is.
Yeah.
He is.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, but, so, that's, I mean, so it doesn't surprise me if that was, it is true, but I just, that was, I mean, it was just a message I received, and I don't know if it was right, if it's true or not.
You know, I want to say this, too. Oh, I want to say, like, the neurodiversity crowd, why is it people take that personally? Because if you do love your child the way they are and they're fine, then fine, we're not talking about you. I don't know, like why are they trying to take away the possibility for other people trying to cure their children? That's just really selfish and self-centered and weird to me.
It is weird, and, you know, but it's the same as, like, the...
Because we're not trying to...
Right.
We're not trying to say, you know, we're not trying to force a cure on their kid.
Right.
You know, I don't get it. What's wrong with
Well, no, it's the same as, like, the pro-vaxxers that, you know, go after Dr. Wolfson and people like that, you know, because they just start calling in and they don't think about the consequences of their actions, or if they do, you know, they feel justified in their actions. Like, he should get his license taken away. How dare he?
That's how I feel about Dr. Pan.
You know,
I feel like Dr. Pan should take his license away, but I feel like I've done enough research and I understand the gravity of the situation more than any of these other people do that are calling for this. Like with Dr. Pan, he's going to cause more people to be injured because he didn't fucking take the time to read and research like he should have. He knows nothing about, or maybe he does and he's just, you know, getting paid off. And just, you know, doing what he's being told to do, even though he might know, you know, I wonder if he vaccinates his own kids, probably, but it just strikes me that he's just really arrogant and stuck on himself, and he hasn't, I mean, it doesn't, that's the thing that's so infuriating, too. It doesn't take a lot. You can read and research, you know. And read the stuff, and he had people giving him, all those people that were lining up during the Senate hearing that were giving him information, 700 people, some people came with papers, some people had personal stories, some people, you know, there was a scientist that actually wrote a book about it who, like, left a copy for him to read. Nothing. You know, oh, I'm just right because I'm a doctor. All these people are imbeciles, and they mean nothing, you know. They're putting us all in danger because I was taught that in medical school, and that's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. Fuck him.
Is he really that ignorant, though? Is he really? Because
I mean, it's more like arrogance. I think it's like, you know, he is really that ignorant because when you're that ignorant, when you're that arrogant, you become ignorant because you're basically ignoring information that people are handing you. Like he had his opportunity. That I know people that personally called and emailed his office trying to tell him their personal stories, sending him, information about vaccines. There was Tatiana. Oh God, I don't know how to say her name. I need to learn. It starts with an O. I'm just gonna say she's a Ivy League immunologist.
Yeah.
And she wrote an open letter, you know, to him with links and evidence and stuff. Nothing.
Yeah.
So he deserves to burn in hell. I think, you know, I mean, I don't know how this is going to go, but I think eventually, because I actually think even though it's infuriating, it's a good thing because it's causing more people to really look at this information, look at our justice system, to see all of the fraud that's going on with the politicians and the senators and everything. You know, it's bringing up people's eyes to a lot of the stuff that they probably didn't think to really investigate before, because they were in a comfort zone where they just expected, oh, well, our legislators will do the right thing. We'll just, every so often we'll just go and we'll vote. We'll just, punch a hole in a card, and, that's all we need to do. And I've seen people have the mentality lately that, well, maybe there's more that we need to do just than that. Even though I'm at the point now I don't vote anymore. I still, with the California, with the whole thing, I mean, I don't see how, I would like to say I would vote, but I don't see how it's going to make any difference, seeing that everybody's paid off, except like one person.
You gotta follow, yeah, exactly.
I don't see, like,
and then they don't have,
and especially seeing how they dealt with people that I knew that called them and tried to talk to him, like that one lady that Rob Snyder called and was trying to talk to, and she posted on her page and making fun of him and calling Deuce Bigelow. Really? Wow. These are the people that represent us. If a rich man or plumber or somebody that works at Walmart, somebody that, wow, I mean, she'd make fun of them too,
Right.
I mean, it should work, but it doesn't. So I don't see where I should put any more of my time and energy into voting on this issue, because I think things are going to change. I don't think it's going to come through voting and hoping that they do the right thing.
No, it's not. It's not going to make any difference at all. It's like, I really don't think it is, because the, like you said, everybody's paid off, everybody's, and I think really this push, and one of the things that's been driving this push is because they're under scrutiny right now. The measles, mumps, rubella virus, the MMR virus vaccine, is being called into question, because there were a couple of Merck employees who blew the whistle on how the vaccine didn't work.
Yeah.
And they had pulled up some data, and they said that, I think it was the mumps part of it, or the rubella, one portion of it, they had isolated that to study it. That isn't to say that the other parts of the vaccine work. It just means to say that that's the part that they studied, and they had done research into. And Steve Carell is one of the names.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And John Wolochowski, those two, yeah, right?
Yeah, and so he said that it wasn't effective at all, and then they put that in the data, and they submitted their research. Well, they basically just erased what he wrote. And put the vaccine out completely. And he said it was just really obvious. Like, they didn't even try to make it look like they were trying to hide it. They just erased what he said about it being ineffective, and just put it on the market. And so these guys said, no, screw that. We're going to sue them, because we are not going to put our name on this data that's fraudulent.
Yeah.
So they're in the process of suing Merck and saying that, basically they put out fraudulent data. So that they're putting out data that wasn't theirs, but then they gave them credit for it, gave these scientists credit for it. So the thing
why isn't that on CNN? I'm just kidding.
Right,
I know.
Why isn't that on CNN?
But Puff Daddy or whatever, Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's next three-headed baby is, you know what I mean? Like, it's bullshit.
Right. And so the thing is that they now they're trying to come out with all this measles stuff and all this measles shenanigans. We've talked on the show many times before, but isn't that convenient? Just they're trying to force this in as they may actually lose the license to carry the MMR vaccine. So it's like push it out and get as much money off of this as we can while we can, because we might actually. And
then for the people that are injured, they can't be sued because you can't sue the pharmaceutical industries,
Yeah, I mean, Merck is an evil corporation. You guys make no mistake. And so I have no doubt that, or no...
But didn't Japan... I'm sorry, Japan banned the MMR, right? I think it's like optional. It's not mandatory.
Yeah, exactly. I think they made it optional versus mandatory because they were noticing an increase in autism But then if you Google that, what you'll come up with is that, well, Japan has seen an outbreak of disease since blah, 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 blah. But I question that too. I don't necessarily how much disease
there's a province in China, Zhejiang, and they've had, I think they have almost 100%. Like compliance rate with MMR vaccine. They have measles outbreaks like all the yin yang.
Well, of course they do, yeah, because everybody's shedding.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We know that the measles vaccine is especially, what do you call it? It has a tendency towards that because it's a live virus. So people who are carrying the live virus, they shed it and then they pass it on to other people. And another thing that I pointed out in my article too, when I talked about I mentioned Garth Nicholson. Well, Garth Nicholson was the one who did the research into the Gulf War syndrome, and he found the mycoplasma contaminated vaccines, and they were getting it through. So the Gulf War vets who were getting Gulf War syndrome were coming down with mycoplasma, which they were getting through their vaccine, and then they were giving it to their family members. So it was actually transmittable.
Yeah.
So people getting the measles vaccine. So it's nothing new. It's like this happens all the time. And it's just, I mean, this, it's the same old story. You gotta realize that these guys aren't going to change that much. They're going to really pretty much, they're going to play the same old game every time.
Yeah.
So this is their game, and they're trying to get this out because Merck is going to, they may lose their license. Maybe they're looking at that right now. And I'm sure that Merck has much more expensive attorneys than the other side because they have deeper pockets. No one's got that kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know how much these guys are worth, but they don't have that kind of money. That's for sure. So, just because it's impossible, because Merck has umpteen, they could probably buy the Federal Reserve Bank. I mean,
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't even know how much, nobody knows. No one knows how much these guys have. But I'm sure it's a lot. But yeah, so anyway, we're going to take a short break because we are eager to take a break so we can get back and talk to Dr. Jack Wolfson.
Woohoo!
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. Our guest today is Dr. Jack Wolfson. Dr. Wolfson is a cardiologist and doctor of osteopathy from Arizona. He spent the first 35 years of his life following the mainstream allopathic model. Until he transformed from being a doctor who followed mindless cookbook medicine to one who will be amongst the leaders of the health revolution in this country. Last year's so-called measles outbreak here in California put him in the spotlight when he went on television and during an interview, and he spoke out against the overstated concerns of contracting measles and against vaccination. Following his statement, there was a witch hunt started by pro-vaccine trolls and pharma to try and revoke the doctor's license, which ultimately failed. He's still practicing healthy, organic art of healing with his wife, Heather, a chiropractor. Their motto is awakening the world to wellness. You can find the Drs. Wolfson at thedoctorswolfson.com and wolfsonintegrativecardiology.com. His latest book, The Paleo Cardiologist, is available for purchase at his website and Amazon. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Wolfson. Hey, Dr. Wolfson.
Thank you so much, April. It's a pleasure to talk to you and Virstyne. Very excited about such a very important topic. As I hear your child crying in the background, I mean, that's what we're doing this for. We're doing this for the children. There's no other reason to do it, because to take up this fight, otherwise you'd have to be, frankly, crazy, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true. It is true. Because, I mean, yeah, it's not, it doesn't win you any popularity contest, does it?
No, it makes for a lot of enemies out there. I mean, people that obviously, whether or not they work for pharmaceutical companies, or they're tied in, or have relatives that work for big pharma, or they work for a pediatrician, or they work, for people that quote unquote promote public health. I mean, it goes on and on. The list of people that are against us. But fortunately, there's a lot of people that do recognize the body's inherent ability to stay healthy, that the body's natural response is to heal, and people that frankly want to keep chemicals out of our children. That's what we do on a daily basis, and we're not going away, and we're not going to stop fighting.
Awesome.
Right.
So, I'm curious, why did you want to become a doctor? And I want you to explain, what the process is to become a doctor, because I think that there's so many doctors that are indoctrinated, and a lot of people don't understand maybe how the indoctrination process works. Does that make sense, in medical school?
Yeah, it's certainly, it's a great question that you ask. And me personally, my father was a cardiologist. All of his friends, of course, were doctors. They were all DOs, for that matter. So I grew up amongst the DOs and idolizing my father. And when I graduated from the University of Illinois, I didn't apply to any other medical school. I knew I wanted to go to Chicago Osteopathic, where my father was on staff. And really, right from the get-go, you're so excited to learn about the pills and the procedures. The pharmacology class, and you learn about all the different drugs, and you so anticipate the day when you can write your first prescription, or you can learn how to write prescriptions. That's at least how I felt, and I know obviously many others felt the same way. And it almost seems like so many doctors are excited to keep writing the prescriptions even as we speak. But you never, I have said this many times, and I say it in my book, there was never a time during 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine, 3 years of cardiology, when we talked about things like diet, nutrition, chemicals in the environment that are so toxic to the body, and the proof behind it. And we never talked about sleep, and we never talked about exercise. To the average person who's not a doctor, they would be mortified to hear that we never talk about it. All we talked about was pills and procedures, and it's very sad, because that's all the typical doctor has in their back pocket, or in their toolbox, if you will, is pills and procedures. So it's not a surprise when pediatricians fight back against us tooth and nail, because that's all they know is how to vaccinate. They've got nothing else up their sleeve, and it's sad. It's really sad for them.
Yeah, because I often think that maybe some doctors should get together and sue the medical schools for teaching them to be unwitting, like iatrogenesis, but it's very sad. It's very frustrating too, because I know people that go to medical or have gone to medical school, and they spend so much time and money and energy, into going and sacrifice a huge part of their life to become a doctor.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, a huge part of your life, the expenditure of it. And, osteopathic medicine was started in the late 1800s by a gentleman by the name of A.T. Still. And he was a doctor at that time who was just frustrated with where mainstream medicine was at that time, when they were using things like mercury and arsenic and really kind of toxic methods to heal. And he basically said, you know what, the body can heal itself, just get out of the way. And he was similar to the first chiropractic physician, which is D.E. Palmer. They were contemporaries, and just part of a large group of people that just said, you know what, mainstream medicine is just going off in the wrong direction. And the DOs of today do not practice like that. They do not practice like the osteopathic medicine was meant to be. It was meant to be a natural, holistic philosophy. And the DOs these days are just mini MDs. And sadly, even the naturopathic colleges and even some of the chiropractic schools are going down that same path where they're just trying to assimilate with mainstream medicine and kind of keep in the good graces for fear of getting ostracized or having laws put up against them. It's we're really at a major crossroads when it comes to health the health paradigm or the sickness paradigm. We're in a major area where things could clearly go one way or the other.
Yeah, that's true. And, when you said that about the chiropractor, I was like, I saw a chiropractor's office giving away flu shots, and I thought, that's not.
Yeah, that's awful. That's like blasphemy. It's horrible. Mm-hmm.
That really is. I mean, once again, the chiropractors, in general, the chiropractors that I'm friends with, I mean, they get it. And, because of my wife and I, people have often said, the chiropractors will be your best friends, and it's totally been true. And so many that we are aligned with are just of the same, same thinking and just amazing healers. And my wife's father is a chiropractor. He still practices out here in Arizona. And, this is just a guy who got it, from the 1970s. And because of that, my wife was never vaccinated. Neither were her 3 siblings. And then, of course, we passed it on to the next generation. But I was, in the medical paradigm, I was fully vaccinated for everything possible, and people will say, "Oh, well, you're okay. I may be okay tomorrow, but today, but anything can happen tomorrow or in 6 months or 6 years. You never know." And we certainly don't know when it comes to vaccines because there's no science behind it.
Right, and and you're okay now because you're living a healthy lifestyle, and you can kind of undo some of that stuff, but not for everybody. Some people, it's just a game of Russian roulette, as we all know. And what's interesting, I'd like to know how you made that paradigm shift, and because that's really refreshing and but really rare. We don't see that a lot. So what was it for you?
Yeah, there's not too many people like myself out there, but there's more and more people that are coming to the realization that pharmaceuticals and conventional medicine is certainly not the answer. Their results are deplorable, and to go after the cause of disease is really what it's all about. And fortunately, there are a lot of societies that are starting up for natural doctors. There's the Metabolic Medical Institute. There's the A4M Academy, where I did 96 hours of metabolic or natural cardiology, if you will. And what started me on this path really was that I was starting to get frustrated with conventional medicine. I would see somebody, who's done 4 or 5 blood pressure medications and their blood pressure's still high. You would see someone in the hospital. You would tune them up to get them to leave, and then 3 weeks later they'd be back in the hospital with the same problem, whether it was another heart attack or another episode of congestive heart failure or uncontrollable hypertension, you name it. And at that time, my father also came down with a strange Parkinson's-like disease called progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. It's kind of a mouthful. And it was a horrible, deplorable death, what he went through over 5 years of suffering. So seeing my frustration with conventional medicine, seeing my father, and then even my wife, who's a chiropractor, who's all natural, and she's, the pills don't work, the procedures don't work, you're going about this the entire, wrong way. And I opened up my eyes and I listened to her, and I read books, and I read the literature, and I met with natural doctors, and I went to conferences. And I was lucky enough to open my eyes from the Matrix, open my eyes from the mainstream brainwashing, and it all made sense. Like, wow, wait a second. Yeah, there is nutrition. There is sleep and physical activity and relaxation, and there's supplements, and there's actually evidence that all this stuff works. And it was just a total epiphany for me. And really amazing, and it's led to an incredible practice. And the best thing about it really is meeting people like you two, and people that just get it, that are awakened. And those of us of this generation, the Matrix generation, get that reference so easily about the movie, where all of our thoughts and and everything is all controlled. We're just controlled by this, corporate pharmaceutical government, complex, and they're just running our every existence and every thoughts, and it's horrible.
Yeah, well said. It's true, because it is quite a paradigm shift. I mean, you're a cardiologist, but you're the paleo cardiologist, and the mainstream would say, well, you got to take statins, you got to reduce your cholesterol, you got to, but that's not the paleo lifestyle at all, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, a cardiologist contacted me from Pakistan overnight, and he sent me a Facebook, friend request, and I answered him back, and he said, what are you doing naturally to reduce the LDL under 100? And I said, I'm like, you need to read my book, basically, because in my book I say I don't care about getting your LDL, cholesterol under 100. That's not the problem. That's pharmaceutical speak, and I don't have any natural ways to lower your cholesterol, your LDL is below 100 unless we remove your liver, and that's not what I do. Once again, it's not, people do not have heart disease because they lack statin drugs, and they don't have high blood pressure because of a blood pressure drug deficiency. Children are unhealthy, and it's not because they lack more vaccines.
Yeah, certainly.
Everything is caused by poor nutrition and chemicals. And when you have good nutrition and avoid the chemicals and give children love and co-sleep and breastfeed, our children are going to thrive, and they're going to roll over, chicken pox like it's a joke, like it was a joke for me when I was 9 years old, and I ate garbage, and I wasn't breastfed, and I wasn't co-slept. And I ate Twinkies and Ding Dongs and deep dish pizza all day long with toxic hot dogs, on and on and on. And it was a joke to me, let alone how it would be to my two breastfed children that both had whooping cough, and it was an annoying cough for a month, and now they're fine, and they're not likely to ever to have a problem with whooping cough ever again, that's for sure.
I have a question, because I remember you were saying in medical school that you never talked about, all you really talked about was like pills and procedures. And I was wondering if you remember if there were any people that dissented while you were in medical school and actually asked kind of critical questions, and what was that like, if you remember that?
Yeah, certainly not that I remember. And
oh, wow.
It's something that I would remember, certainly if somebody was questioning vaccines, because some pediatrician would have quickly, squashed them, or a pediatric resident, would have done that. I think it's just kind of like taken for granted that when you go into medical school, whether it's to be an MD or a DO, that, you're just, you're in love with the whole idea of prescriptions and the use of pharmaceuticals and procedures, even amongst DOs. But in short, there probably were some people that were questioning it, but I certainly didn't. And I got into medical school when I was 21 years old, and I bought everything they said, hook, line, and sinker, and I did until I was in in my early 30s, before I started to change.
Did you have any patients that challenged you?
Not too often, because obviously the majority of people, they want the quick fix, they want the simple solution, and they're brainwashed like everybody else. They watch television, and television tells us we need to be on our statin drugs to prevent heart attacks. We need to take our aspirin. We need something for our stomach. We need something for our depression. We need something for our anxiety. We need something for our, erectile dysfunction. We need testosterone. We need female hormones. We need things for arthritis, and we got to be swallowing, Motrin and ibuprofen. You guys know how it is, and that's the typical client. My brother is a doctor up in Las Vegas, and 90% of what he sees are people just looking for pills. They've got chronic pain. They need their antibiotics. They need their psych meds refilled. And a lot of people don't want to hear any different. Like, wait a second. So you're telling me that what you're saying is I need to radically change my lifestyle and my diet, and this doctor over here is just telling me to take this pill. I think I'll just take the pill. Thank you so much. But
like
right.
Sorry.
Oh, it's kind of like the Jetsons, you know, like that's how they took pills even when they ate. They never ate, they just took pills. And I think in some kind of weird subconscious way, people think that we're evolving by doing that. It's like an evolutionary thing that it's just simpler. We don't have to go through all this stuff. And in the process, they become lazy, you know?
Yeah, certainly. And we're not anywhere close to that. Sometimes, you know, cardiologists talk about this poly pill, and a poly pill would include a blood pressure drug and a statin drug and an aspirin, you know, and you know, whatever else they want to throw into this thing, and then it's going to reduce, you know, your risk, you know, by 65%. But the reality is, and I talk about this obviously in my book, is that you know, let's take it at face value that statin drugs are beneficial. Well, how do they benefit? They reduce your chance of having a heart attack from 8% down to 6.5%. Well, okay, if you want your risk to be 8% or 6.5%, great. But if you want it to be 0%, you're not going to get there in mainstream medicine. You're going to get there using natural methods.
Plus, don't they have a lot of side effects in addition to that? So are you kind of trading one illness for another?
Yeah, I mean, just obviously, you know, open up the, you know, you can go on the computer and find out, but you can open up what's called the physician's desk reference or look at the package insert, look it up for vaccines, obviously, and you'll just see, you know, side effect after side effect, everything under the sun is a possibility, and I've seen it. I've been a cardiologist, you know, a practicing cardiologist for over 13 years, and, you know, certainly my practice now is a natural practice, and I see plenty of people that come in with history of pharmaceutical harm, injury, side effects. So I see it on an everyday basis, and you know, and really the medical literature. You know, a lot of these, you know, pharmaceutical companies, they hide the data that they don't want to get out. They hide the bad stuff. They only let you know the good stuff, and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want one more question. Since you're a cardiologist, I want to know this, and you're talking about pills. Is it true that if you're having a heart attack that you can take an aspirin and it would stop it? Is there some truth to that, or is it just a blatant lie?
Yeah, no, that's a blatant lie. What aspirin has been shown is that if you are in the midst of a heart attack and you take an aspirin, that it can reduce the severity of the damage and may even improve your risk of dying or decrease your risk of dying. But those numbers are trivial. Once again, they're typically, you know, sponsored by the Bayer Corporation and the companies that manufacture aspirin. The data on aspirin is very weak. But, you know, to further answer your question, I've seen people, they come in like, oh, I had chest pain, and I took some aspirin and the pain went away. And I would tell them that's not cardiac. The pain could have been from anything else, but you were not having a heart attack. The aspirin does not avert heart attacks.
Right. They might have been having an anxiety attack or something.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been anxiety. It could have been, you know, bone, muscle, rib pain. It could have been an episode of heartburn. It could have been anything, you know, that was, but it was not having a heart attack. Aspirin is poison. It's a heavy-duty blood thinner. It causes stomach ulcers. Unfortunately, tens of millions of people swallow it on a daily basis, thinking they're going to prevent a heart attack and stroke. When in reality, if there is any benefit, it is so tiny. And if you were to explain to people the actual data and try and teach them something instead of just listening to what the television says, and if you read my book, obviously it's in there, the actual benefit of aspirin in the majority of cases is just about zero. It really is just about zero, according to their science, which of course they control.
Yeah.
And did you at any point when you made this shift and because you said you came from a family of doctors, you're a mainstream medical doctor, were you scared to talk about it? And you know, did you ever like hesitate for a minute? Because you're pretty vocal. And you know, that's how we found you, because I was, wow.
We're like, dang.
Yeah, exactly. So,
this is a great.
Did a fear ever set in?
I've gotten more confident over the years. I've gotten more vocal over the years. And obviously my knowledge and confidence, you know, once again has grown about the ability to speak out. But listen, there's a lot of doctors that are out there that feel the same as me, but they're afraid. They're afraid of their medical board. They're afraid of other doctors. They're afraid of their partners. They're afraid of themselves to, once again, open up their eyes and say, wow, everything I was told, the whole premise is based on fallacy and lies and misinformation. But, for me, I had to apologize to doctors for what I was saying. I had to go back to my partners that I worked with and my bosses and apologize and say, well, I'm not going to say these things anymore. But, of course, I would continue to do it because at the end of the day, I always said, I have to look at myself in the mirror. I have to look at my children and say, what did I do this for? I mean, what was I all about? Was I all about the money? I was getting a major paycheck, far into the top 1%, if you will, in this country. And, I gave it all up. I gave it all up to practice the right way, to teach the right things, to speak my mind. And a lot of doctors are afraid to do that. They're afraid to give up the paycheck. For good reason. I mean, we all want comfort. We all want nice things. We all want to take care of our families. We have bills to pay. We have school loans to pay back. So a lot of doctors are afraid to speak out. But, once again, I mean, the reason why doctors went into this hopefully is not for the money, and it's to do the right thing by their patients, by public, by society. And eventually, I was learning all this and still practiced up until 2012 in the old system. So even myself, it took me time to eventually make the leap away from the mainstream. But it was the best, one of the best things I ever did.
And when you did speak out, and you did have you went on TV and all that, there was a lot of backlash, wasn't there? I mean, we mentioned it during the intro. There was an orchestrated kind of witch hunt against you to get your license revoked. And I mean, how was that for you? Did the fear set in? Did you go, oh no, why did I do this? What did I get myself into?
Yes, there were certainly moments of that, but never any moments of regret. I knew what could possibly happen by making the comments that I made, but there were over 38 complaints to my medical board. But none were from patients, and they were from random people, some MDs, some DOs. Once again, if you challenge the establishment or the established thinking, you're going to get slapped around, and I did. But I, maintained that, hey, listen, I'm a doctor, and I have the right to question what's going on around me, and I have the right to question what we're doing regarding vaccines or statin drugs or procedures. And for people to think that doctors like me should be shut up, I mean, this isn't communist Russia. This isn't Nazi Germany. I mean, we have to question everything that's going around us. Otherwise, I mean, we're total fools, and we'll get run over by people who do not have our best interests at heart. And but once again, there's so many doctors that are fearful of that. I mean, once again, the pediatricians. And I've said this many times. The pediatrician, their job is to vaccinate. That's all they do. That's like telling a mailman, to stop delivering the mail, or use any analogy you will, for an accountant to stop using a calculator. I mean, it's just what they do, and I've had a lot of blowback against it. But fortunately, once again, we're protected by our ability, for free speech. But even that, can be called into question at any moment. It's scary times for people that want to speak the truth.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I just want to, both. One of the things that April and I really liked about you. We noticed in ourselves that we can be kind of very snarky at times, but sometimes I feel that it might hinder me or I'll just speak for myself, hinder me in some ways, because I think I might turn people off when I'm expressing my views. But I have to admit, sometimes it feels really good. And but I want to ask, do you think that your no nonsense attitude in dealing with people and their old fashioned medical views serves you, or what?
Yeah, that's a great point, Virstyne. Is that my wife is certainly of the mentality hit them over the head with a sledgehammer. Life is life is too short to beat around the bush, and that you can change a large segment of the population by just telling it like it is. And that's how I want people to talk to me, to be straightforward, with me. And they're like, oh, well, you talk about you're the natural cardiologist, but you drive a gas guzzler, of a car. You drive a BMW. Why don't you drive, a Prius, or why don't you ride your bike all the time? And I get it. I would accept that comment and say, you're right. You're right. So in that sense, some of what I may be saying is, can be said, to be fraudulent, but I can accept what you're saying. Because so many moms don't want to hear that they should have breastfed and that they should have co-slept, and that they were not informed about vaccinations. And that was that blog post that I wrote that was a really scathing piece that went to vaccineimpact.com, and it was viewed over 1 million times, and it was shared hundreds of thousands of times. And really is what caught the attention of CNN and other mainstream media. And it was just that in your face, like, hey, you didn't do these things, you didn't ask these questions, and why? Because you were too busy at Starbucks or waiting for your next sugar fix or getting your plastic surgery or worried about your next love affair. And it struck a chord at people like, oh my God, this doctor, this cardiologist is saying all this stuff, and it was beautiful in the sense that a lot of people agreed, and it generated a lot of hate from those people that know it is the truth but refuse to admit it to themselves and to the world. So, I'm able to dial it down sometimes. I feel like I get a decent sense of the people around me when I'm talking to them in person, but like I said, my wife is just in your face. I'm sorry you can't handle it. I'm sorry that you think that you were not successful breastfeeding because it was somebody else's fault. It was your fault. Your baby didn't, spit up your milk, and your baby had colic because you were eating garbage food and passed it on to your poor baby, and hence you had to stop breastfeeding and start using soy-based formula. Good luck with that. So, what, and I'll tell you guys one more thing is that, my mom is 70 years old, and she hears all this, stuff from us, and she's like, oh, I was the worst mother. I didn't breastfeed you. I didn't co-sleep with you. I fed you chocolate chip cookies when you were 6 months old. And I said, listen, Ma, you were a wonderful mother in a lot of ways. I said, but I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about the future. And what you need to understand is that the best way to do it is to breastfeed, is to co-sleep, is to consider whether or not vaccines are right for you. And frankly, I don't think they're right for anybody. And realize this, Mom. So when someone asks you, if they ask your opinion, hey, Marlene Wolfson, what do you think about breastfeeding? You say, I didn't do it, but I should have. I didn't co-sleep, but I should have. I didn't feed you the right foods, but I should have. That's how we need to let our guard down and say we made mistakes, but in order to improve going forward, this is the way to do it.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, because I have a vaccine-injured child, and and I'm obviously very anti-vax now, but I didn't know better at the time. But I think part of what has been I've been able to wake up and to go down this journey is because I said I made a mistake, and somehow inherently, and what I liked about your article is that it was straight and to the point and in your face, but I think somehow on a certain level we kind of know instinctually that these things are sort of wrong because of course people know that sugary cereals and these things are bad. They eat them anyway. They do it anyway. They go to McDonald's anyway, because they like the taste of it, and you grow up on it, and you get into the bad habit of it. But I don't know anybody who doesn't really know that those things are bad for them, So there is a level of that. It's like to shake people up a little and say, don't, it's wrong and don't do it. But even on a certain level, we recognize vaccines are wrong because when you take your kid to the doctor's office and they plug them, the whole thing is bizarre. They're like abusing your child right in front of you. And it just didn't feel right, and then, of course, it wasn't right. But, I mean, that's something I've had to live with, just like you do. And, you know, both of you making mistakes, and you have to live with it and move on and say, no more, this isn't going to happen anymore, and I'm going to tell you why. Because
well, you know,
that.
Our first child, we have two boys, and our first one we circumcised, and we did that because it's part of our religious faith, although we've pretty much given up that, and I'll talk about that in a second. You know, it's part of the Jewish faith to do it, and thinking, okay, well, you know, Dad is circumcised, being me, and all of his friends, you know, when he's in the high school locker room, blah blah blah. But we still were kind of unsure about it. We were like, oh, well, you know, the family, they'll be upset, and we made a mistake. We circumcised our first guy. We did not circumcise the second guy, and you know, it's a mistake that we have to live with. Hopefully, it's not the biggest mistake we ever made or make. You know, and you know, I think plenty of people probably turn out okay, you know, from circumcision. But you know, once again, it's just about looking past, you know, what we did, you know, previously, and it's about you know, going forward and doing better.
Yeah, well, since you said that you talked about that, I mean, I'm going to prompt you to talk about, like, why did you stop circumcision and not practicing your faith, or stop practicing your faith?
Well, as far as the faith is concerned, it's almost like you hear from people in the Jewish religion that if you don't circumcise your males, then they are not in the covenant with God, with the Hebrew God. And we were not really religious before this, and it was kind of like, okay, if you're saying we're not in the covenant with the Hebrew God, then I guess we're all not in the covenant, and we're all going to quit and all not really, you know, be observant at all. And I guess that's just where things stand with that. There's an amazing documentary called Cut, you know, and it's done by an Orthodox Jewish person. What he, you know, basically documents, and he talks to, you know, different rabbis and medical doctors and all the people that have their different reasons, you know, for circumcising. But he eventually talks to a rabbi, and the rabbi says, you know what, circumcision is cruel, it is barbaric, and the only reason why we do it is because that's what God commanded us to do. So.
Yeah, and that's something you're going to have to, because you have two kids, and then the other one, does he ever ask, the younger one, or I mean the older one, does he ask why he is and your other son, your 3-year-old, isn't?
Yeah, no, we you know, talk to him about it. He's 8 years old. He's a very intelligent boy, and we tell him, we're like, hey, listen, we made a mistake. I mean, I don't want to, you know, give him a complex about it and make that big of a deal. Yeah. You know, certainly. But when we tell them, listen, you know, Dad is, circumcised, and so is your cousin, and so is your cousins and your uncles and stuff, and so is everybody else. But your brother is not. So how the dynamic will play out over time, I don't know. But you know, plastic surgery on baby boys is wrong. Plastic surgery on baby girls is wrong, to remove, you know, parts of their female genitalia. It's just wrong, and I don't care. You know, sometimes, you know, people say, "Oh, well, you know what? There was a study done which showed decreased STDs." Blah blah blah. You know what? I mean, you know, their studies are you know, full of flaws. You know, you're never going to take a population where you start from the beginning and randomize them and say half circumcised, half not. We'll see what happens in the long term. There's errors in all their kind of methodologies. The bottom line is we should not be performing plastic surgery on newborn baby boys. If they want to get circumcised when they're 16 or 18 or whenever it's officially legal, that's fine. But in our house, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre too that even though it's supposed to be originally a Jewish custom, it's part of our. It's really widely done in the United States and in England or Britain, I would say.
Right.
Very bizarre.
Well, you know, I think also is that obviously there is a financial incentive to do it. Everybody gets paid in the hospital to do circumcisions. But it's really horrific, and it's not, you know, Certainly not something that we condone. So it's another thing we're fighting against. But once again, it's not about, belittling, moms and dads, for doing what they did. It's about, hey, listen, realizing that it was wrong. Move on from it.
Yeah, and just be honest about it, because, we did those things too. Both my boys are circumcised, and they were both hospital births. My daughter, no, did not home birth, and no, I didn't even have an ultrasound. I stayed away from all of that stuff because we really don't know what we're doing with all of these things, and we really don't know the benefits of those types of things in the long. I mean, if there is any benefit at all to doing things like ultrasounds or all these tests and everything, we don't really see, is the outcome a healthier baby? Well, no. Then why am I doing it? Then it's just like you said. There's financial incentive. There's just way, way, way too many interventions, which is something that is just a completely normal process. And so, and as a result, it was a much no stress during this pregnancy. Everything was great. So I feel safer at home than in a hospital, to be quite honest, when it comes to delivering a baby. But
I totally agree with you. I would never have said that 10 years ago before I met my wife, but now I'm in 1,000% agreement. And it was maybe like our third or fourth date, and we started talking about home births, and I was like, "What are you talking? What? Giving birth at home?" And she said, "The hospital is the sickest, most unhealthy, toxic place in the entire world." And I said, wow, I guess that's kind of true. And medicine has made pregnancy into a disease that has to be treated in a hospital when for millions of years people gave birth, in the wild. And I said something to an OB-GYN friend of mine, and he said, home births are great. The only problem is they're messy. And then we had our first home birth. And the midwives, there were two, there was a main one and then two, understudies, and it's like it wasn't even messy, actually. They cleaned up everything. And I like to say that the two home births that we did for our boys were the two single greatest days of my life. My wife would say otherwise, but...
yeah, I know what she means.
With the husband in the room, it was incredible. And I'll tell you one more thing about that is that when I was on call a few nights after we had this discussion, and I had to go to the hospital to see a woman who went in a cardiac arrest after a C-section, and it really, once again, just kind of hit home like, wow, we're definitely doing a home birth. I was so excited about it. Anyways, yeah, what a amazing experience that every woman should have for a multitude of reasons. We could talk for 10 hours, the three of us, and my wife obviously would talk about 50 hours about home birth.
Yeah, for sure. And but getting back to the vaccine issue, which is what brought us to you in the first place, we wanted to, when you went on the TV show and you were talking about the kind of overstated fears of people contracting the measles, how do you feel about, and you mentioned your kids had pertussis or whooping cough, and how do you feel about, kids getting measles or mumps or chickenpox or any of these things? Do you worry about it all, or do you just think that that's part of life and it strengthens your immune system? And
yeah, well, I think no one likes to see their kid sick. No one likes to see their kid uncomfortable and aching in pain or itching and scratching. Nobody wants that. But the reality is that kids are very resilient. Adults can be very resilient, and you're sick for a couple days and you get over it. But we're talking about things like chickenpox, measles, rubella. These are a fever, a cough, and a rash. They are rarely life-threatening, especially if you really push people to stay healthy. If you feed a kid, once again, McDonald's cookies, cupcakes, and put them in laundry detergent, fabric softeners, and colognes and perfumes, on a toxic mattress, left to cry it out on their own without being breastfed, etc., and load them up with more toxins and the vaccines, yeah, you're probably going to have a sick child on your hands. But don't do that, number one. And number two, you can't force me to do that to my child, to load them full of chemicals. We spend our entire lives trying to keep the toxic chemical exposure in our children to a minimum, by eating organic food and by sleeping on an organic mattress and wearing organic clothes when they can, and using air purifiers in the house, on and on and on, to foster an incredible environment for our children, and then to load them up on vaccines, like I said, for chickenpox, for measles. Look back to some of the sitcoms in the 1960s. Those videos circulate on YouTube about the Brady Bunch and the measles episode, when the whole family comes down with measles. I mean, that was a snapshot of society. Woohoo! I got the measles. I don't have to go to school. And how did this get all vilified? How did 3 million children getting chickenpox on a yearly basis? How did that become? Oh my God! We got to vaccinate against the chickenpox.
The media.
We know that measles. There was a study shows that getting measles decreases cardiovascular disease risk. Women who get the mumps decreased risk of ovarian cancer. The answer is we just don't know how beneficial these things are, because the studies aren't there, and frankly, what the main study is society and the human race developing over just eons. So.
Yeah, and I remember, and just like you said at the beginning, how you weren't breastfed, you ate, Twinkies and, had all that, and so did I, and I had the chicken pox, and it wasn't even a big deal. I can't say I was raised in a healthy environment like that either, but I was sick for probably not even a week. I got to stay home from school. It wasn't, it wasn't a big deal really, and our kids are, obviously, the environment has changed. We didn't have GMOs back then, so even if we were eating junk food, it's like bigger the junk food now. It's worse junk food.
Well said. Very well said.
Frankenfood now, so it's worse. And we didn't have as many vaccines as we do now. And do you think that there's a such thing as informed consent? Like, do people, when it comes to vaccination, do they make an informed decision and then do it, or are they just doing it because they don't know better?
Yeah, I think that the truly informed parent is very, very rare, and the truly informed parent that would choose to vaccinate is an imbecile. They are moronic. They are still totally ignorant. I don't get it. When people come to our lectures, and for a parent to walk out and still vaccinate blows my mind. It is typically got to be over guilt. Or just not wanting to deal with it, with their pediatricians and society or stigmata or whatever. For example, in cardiology, there was a study that just came out about a month ago that looked at true informed consent regarding the invasive procedure called an angiogram. And what the study found, New England Journal of Medicine, they found that only 3% of the time, not 33% of the time, was a cardiology patient fully informed prior to making their decision. And they found that when the total group was fully informed about the risks, the benefits, and the alternatives of that particular cardiology procedure, the majority of them elected not to go through with the procedure. And 3% in cardiology, true informed consent in a pediatrician's office happens 0%. You go into the pediatrician's office, time for your vaccines. If you question, they will get upset. They will throw you out of the practice. They will not want to discuss this with you because in their mind there is no reason to have an informed consent because they don't
know themselves.
Significant risk.
I'm sorry, and they don't know themselves, actually.
And they don't know themselves. They are truly, truly ignorant physicians when it comes to the ingredients in the vaccines, the possible side effects of the vaccines. They just know what they were told, and they were told that vaccines are the greatest thing ever. And, what happened to polio? Well, what happened to polio is brilliantly documented by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys in her book, Dissolving Illusions. Polio, even at its highest outbreak in the 1940s, affected 40,000 people out of 100 million in the country. 40,000 were affected. Rarely was it paralytic, and the reality is it most likely was not a virus that did it. It was pesticides such as DDT. It was arsenic, which they were using. It was other vaccines that they were getting, and possibly even and likely other viruses. And people said, what happened to polio? Well, polio exists today, but we call it a different name. It's called acute flaccid paralysis. We call it Guillain-Barré syndrome. We call it transverse myelitis. There's just other names for the same disease process.
I'm just curious. You seem like you keep pretty current with the incoming medical information, and there's so much because it's not only in the United States, but there are other people experimenting and making discoveries all around the world. Do you think it's practical or for a doctor who owns his own practice to keep up with the latest medical information?
Well, obviously it's very daunting, even in the cardiology literature, and I certainly don't keep up with all of the the mainstream cardiology things about the newest pill and the newest procedure, because they're not doing anything dramatic. And obviously, I'm interested in going after the cause. So it doesn't matter what the new surgery is or the new pill is to me. In the vast majority of cases, it's useless. But for physicians, it's overwhelming to to know, you can't know everything or even close. But if in your mind that you always maintain, hey, the natural approach is the way to go, unless it's an emergency. Sometimes, heart attacks happen, and the best approach, is going to the hospital and having a stent placed. Sometimes you need open heart surgery for, certain cases, but the vast majority of time we can deal with things naturally.
Yeah, so it's just basically it. I think of it as just it's for acute symptoms only, not really for. Or I guess they can keep you alive, but they can't really teach you how to live. That's how I look at it.
They definitely can't teach you.
Right. It's just for crisis prevention, I suppose. Just if you've got hit by a truck, you would probably go to the hospital. Yes. But what we're seeing today is just epidemic proportions of autoimmunity and all these types of, which are chronic, over and over and over again. And to me, it seems at this point very, very obvious. I don't know how people aren't really, tuning into the fact that this is so epidemic, but they're not. So, or maybe they just don't have faith in their own ability to heal. Do you find in your practice when you're working with people, do you still have to kind of coax them into wanting to make these lifestyle changes? Or do they ever come to you and say, well, can I just take a supplement, or can I just take a this or that, and then just go about my day and I'll get better? Do you still have to kind of, okay, come on, you really have to do this. You really have to do the, dietary changes. You really have to do lifestyle changes. Clean, get an air filter. You got to,
Well, I think that obviously, there's all different kind of patients. The people that see me in general want to get better. They want to go after the cause. They want to make the commitment. But, for example, if I tell people, you know what, you got to kick the coffee habit, and they say no, then I'll say, okay, fine, at least drink organic coffee. If you're going to, how big of a deal is it to switch from a toxic laundry detergent to a natural product? How difficult is it to get rid of the fabric softener, dryer sheets, perfumes, colognes? How difficult is it to get a good water system? How difficult is it to get, high quality, pots and pans and cookware? How difficult is it to get an organic mattress? Organic sheets, organic underwear. So the reality is that, you try to make it easy for as many people as possible. But, back to what we said, before, when we said, there's plenty of people that know that McDonald's cookies and cupcakes are bad for you. I don't think they know just how bad it really is. And also, we need to tell them when they raise their hands and say, oh, did you hear so-and-so got cancer? Did you hear so-and-so has Parkinson's or dementia or had a heart attack? Well, we need to tell them why they had it. And the reason why they had it is because of poor nutrition and chemicals. So if you're told, that smoking is bad and you continue to smoke, well, then, that's on you. But, a lot of people don't realize how bad sugar is. They don't realize how bad secondhand smoke is. They don't realize how bad it is to, sleep on a memory foam mattress, on and on and on. So we try and open up as many eyes as we can.
And I think that's true about vaccination too, because what I get a lot are people who say, well, there's no one saying that there aren't people who have vaccine injury, and which that actually isn't true, because there are people who will flat out say nobody gets hurt from vaccines, they're perfectly safe. But but majority of people recognize that there is vaccine injury, but they just don't think it's going to happen to them, or they just don't. They're blocked from actually going to the website and actually reading the ingredients and seeing what's actually in it. Because if you start there, that's the first place you're going to go.
That and the adverse reactions, because they're way worse than the measles, Well,
how many parents, would if they have a child who's not normal, let's say they have autism or attention deficit or autoimmune, how many parents are willing to accept the fact that they allowed it to happen? The majority of parents are going to want to suppress that information and say, no, I didn't cause that. I didn't have a role in that. It's just genetics, or it just happens because we don't know why. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to accept that they damaged their child. And that's a very difficult, pill to swallow, for people to think that they let it happen. They didn't ask the questions. But once again, we're not here to beat up people about that. We're here to, educate people so they know going forward, and they fight this battle with us.
Yeah, it's funny that when you say that, because one of the things I mentioned in my last article was about this crowd. There's like this neurodiversity movement of people who want to label autism as just like a difference, like, it's just a different way of thinking. It's just a different mindset. And to me, that's really, really dangerous, because they're putting it out there in the world that this is something that, well, if it's just different, then it's not something that we can either prevent or try to fix or try to help. And that's just, that's sort of I think it's just kind of a propaganda. But when you say that, there could be some element of it from the parents just not wanting to admit that they had a part in it. And maybe that's the painful side that makes them want to go, well, this is just, no, it's a gift. It's a beautiful thing. And then, and I'm glad, and no one's saying that the, autistic children aren't beautiful and that they don't have value. It's just more like, but we recognize that this is wrong, right? We recognize that these kids are very, very ill. And I'm sure I don't know if you do, but maybe you've seen even some in your practice who come and they've been vaccine damaged.
Yeah, I mean, mine obviously practice is geared, towards adults, and I can't say that I have any adult, people with autism, and I'm by far, I'm certainly not the, brain injury autism expert by any means, but I think that, from what I've seen of autistic children, compared to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who it said that he had polio, but actually he probably had Guillain-Barré syndrome. But could your child become president, or lead a corporation, or do just basic activities? If they're autistic, I mean, I don't see how in any way, shape, or form this is necessarily a gift. I mean, I would love my child just the same, obviously, but I would agree with you that we can't necessarily say that this is like a normal variant, because it didn't exist before. The numbers are exploding, and I think that we probably want our children mostly to be like us. If we're good people, and if that child's not capable of living the life that we led, I mean, something's not right.
Yeah, and I mean, and some of our children that are on the more severe and profound end of the spectrum, I mean, suffer greatly with seizures and self-injurious behavior and all kinds of things like that. So that's, I think, really damaging. But when you said that, I never thought, well, maybe they just don't want to admit that they messed up.
Right. Guilt,
so that could be part of it.
Guilt is a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling to have, and it's much better to suppress it and to take, drink alcohol and to smoke marijuana and to take your pharmaceutical drugs to ease the pain and cover up the pain of what you did in these scenarios before people would admit it. And frankly, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are thinking, okay, fine, vaccines are dangerous, but you know what? I injected them into my kid, you're going to inject them into your kid. And that's scary.
Yeah,
wow. Scary.
Wow, yeah. Whew.
Yeah, really, really good point. And we're almost out of time here, but before we go, I wanted to mention that you have a book, and so your book is available on your website, the Paleo Cardiologist. So can you give us a little summary? What do you go over in your book?
Yeah, so thank you. It's called the Paleo Cardiologist, The Natural Way to Heart Health. It's available on Amazon. It's available at our new website, thedoctorswolfson.com. And doctors is abbreviated DRS. And, of course, we're on social media, Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram. I kind of just got into Instagram. I love kind of showing the recipes, or just we're out hiking, and it's just awesome to connect with natural people from all over the world. But the book has 17 chapters, 2 of which have to do with paleo nutrition. The rest are on how important cholesterol is, what cholesterol is, what LDL is, HDL, the cardiology particles. It's about the importance of sleep. It's about how to avoid toxins such as heavy metals and plastics and other pollutants. It's about relaxation. It's about physical activity. It's about everything you need, really, not only to have a healthy heart, but a total healthy body. I do mention vaccines in there, only in the sense that they're a source of heavy metals such as aluminum and mercury. In no way in there I do not tell people, I don't say not to vaccinate. I say, but if you are toxic and such, you may want to think twice about getting vaccinated. There's a chapter in there, top 20 supplements and top 20 heart tests that everybody needs. And there's a chapter called The Wonders of Chiropractic, where I talk about, my wife at our wedding and some really cool things and some of the evidence-based medicine that chiropractic care, does. And the book's been very successful. It was the #1 new release in heart disease on Amazon. And it's gotten fantastic reviews. It's got a lot of haters out there. That it's kind of like the book either has a 5-star review or a 1-star review from people that have not read the book. So I would encourage maybe anyone who's listening to this to do me a favor, hop onto Amazon and give me a good review, because the positive reviews help to get the word out. So that's obviously very important. But the book's been very exciting. Thank you.
Well, sure. Yeah, no, I can't wait to check it out, because I was looking at your website and I saw the recipes. I don't know who creates those recipes. You and your wife do it together, if she does it, but they look good, and I want to try some of these things. I like to cook too, and then, we're working. Yeah, and we're working towards moving into the GAPS diet. I don't know if you're familiar with the.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
which is very similar to paleo. So some of the recipes will match. So it'll be. I'm excited. Your stuff looks really, really good. There's a recipe on here for ketchup.
Yeah.
Because all that stuff you buy at the store is not good for you.
Well, obviously if it's organic from the store, it's not the biggest deal. But people are always asking for recipes, so we try and post when we can. We also, my friend Nikki Jensen posts recipes on our site for us. Jeff Nimoy is the Cooking Caveman. And that's his recipe for ketchup. So we're kind of reaching out to other people regarding their recipes. The GAPS diet, I have not done a lot of research on. I've read parts of Dr. McBride's book. I guess the only fault I see in it is that it's kind of complicated in the sense of all the different do's and don'ts, and I find paleo to be kind of much more simple in the sense that, eat the vegetables, eat the nuts and seeds, eat the eggs and avocados and coconuts, eat the grass-fed free-range meats and wild seafood, and follow those, and you'll do very well. Sometimes people have an egg allergy, probably related to a vaccine injury, and eggs have to be cut out. But most people do very, very well on paleo. So maybe try paleo first, and if paleo doesn't get you where you need to be, then maybe refine it with GAPS.
Right.
But we do want to try and take it somewhat easy, make it somewhat simple on for people to follow.
Yeah, we've had a pretty restricted diet for a long time, but the GAPS diet, I will say you're right, because I wanted to start that earlier, but it is complicated in that you have to do these stages. They're very, very hard to do. But it's to heal the leaky gut when you have leaky gut issues, which, is an issue for my son. So that was one of the things but I love your recipes on here, and that's really good advice. So
paleo should seal the leaky gut. I mean, it's the non-paleo foods that are problematic. Get those out of your diet, and I've seen it in my patients, miraculously, but probably doesn't work for everybody, and different people need to try different things. But I think that paleo, which is obviously our ancestral diet, is the easiest and the best place to start, and then maybe refine it as you need to.
All right, well, that's great advice. So thank you so much for being on our show today. And please, before we go, if you can remind our audience how they can buy your book and read these recipes, just give them the website and the best place to get in touch with you.
You got it. TheDoctorsWolfson.com. Doctors is abbreviated DRS. You follow us on Facebook. We're always trying to post good information on Facebook, whether it's about vaccines or it's about heart health or just trying to be the best parent you can be. We got a lot of information coming out there. And that's it. More things to follow. We got more books in the way, and we got some ideas as far as children's, online classes, for parents, just to become the best parents they could be and the most informed parents they can be. Anyways, and then my practice is in Arizona. If anyone wants to see me, my practice is super busy. It's fantastic. There's not many cardiologists that practice like me, and it's been very exciting. So thank you so much for having me on your show, ladies.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
For sure.
All right, keep in touch.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. Hey, Virstyne.
Hey, man. We just finally got through talking to Jack Wolfson. He's bomb. I like him a lot.
That was a great interview.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And it's always good to have a straight shooter on.
Yeah, because we totally vibe with that. Down. It seems like actually more likely the good doctors get taken down more than and scientists get taken down more than the bad ones.
I know. And that's why we want to do a show called Debunking Debunked, because Debunked is just a hoax, like just stupid, this website that goes in and takes all these good doctors who are healing people and not hurting anybody. And
there are quite a few of them now.
Oh,
she did a really good expose on that. I'll probably play the TED Talk with Cheryl Atkinson.
Oh yeah.
She talks about well, I don't think she talks about names in the TED Talk, but she did a TED Talk talking about astroturfing, and then after that she did an article, and she just named them all. It's like Quackwatch, Skepticide, Science-Based Medicine. It's actually kind of like any of these blogs with the word science or skeptic in it usually.
Yeah, and then I think one of the other ones was that she called out by name was Snoop.
It was Snoop.
Yeah. Yeah. So she right. So that's awesome that she just calls these guys out by name and how they're full of crap.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do it too.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to do it hardcore. We're going to go hard.
Right, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they come up with all these things, and they don't have any basis for what they're talking about. And, meanwhile...
Bullying, it's this form of academic bullying for people that are easily, that are considered the intellectuals, because they have different ways the system has different ways of bullying people. So they bully people who maybe don't consider themselves intellectual by just showing them pictures and, scaring them and or having the latest celebrity come out, like Kristen Baby Talk Abel come out and talk about that facts are friends and shit like that, and people are like, oh, she's cool and she's a celebrity, so she must know what she's talking about. And then they have that section of people, and then they have another. Then they have like the intellectuals, and this is how they get them. They'll just, the intellectuals will look up, they'll hear a name and they'll look it up, and because Google can make the search engines go to, basically control the search engine, so that name will pop up, but it will pop up on Quackwatch.
Right.
And then, or like science-based medicine, and then they'll have somebody talking about like what a shill they are, what a quack they are, or a loon they are. And it's all ad hominem attacks. They don't attack their theory, and if they do, they nitpick and they pick and choose. You know, they don't attack the science. You know, and I thought that was really interesting. I saw an interview with Suzanne Humphreys, and you know, she was like, "Yeah, it's really interesting. If people attack me, they always use ad hominem attacks. They don't really attack my work." And today it was kind of funny because I was talking to this microbiologist today, and I happened to be reading Suzanne Humphreys' book, Dissolving Illusions, and I start talking about the science of vaccination, and then he's like, "Well, how do you know this stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, I do research, you know, I do independent research." And he was like, "Oh, well, do you do any work with lab rats or frogs?" And I was like, "No, but the scientists whose work I referenced do." And I'm just like, you know, had I been an advocate for vaccination, I bet you he wouldn't have asked me that, you know? Like, but that was like the only thing he had to say. It was like, "Oh, well,
right.
Well,
what if you just busted out with, "Yeah, I do." And just been real chill about it.
No, because I think he said it made more of a point to be like, "No, I have a fucking brain. I can just go read studies of people that actually do that stuff, just like you do." You know.
Right.
I mean, it's just this is such a common sense answer. Really, do I have to? Is that what's required now? You know, it's like you can't use your own brain. You can't like go and look at you can't you know, use your own reasoning and your own common sense to make decisions. You know, it's ridiculous.
No, it's true. I know. And I just as you were talking, just for fun, I wanted to Google and see if Dr. Wolfson was on Quackwatch. He's not. He's not made it there.
No, that's what's here at Truth Talk. Yeah, an honor if you're on Quackwatch. That means you're doing something. I think Suzanne Humphreys is finally on Quackwatch, though, because I remember a few years ago she wasn't. I was like, so she's making progress. She's making headway.
Yeah, there you go. She's making a mark, you know. But yeah, because these guys will come after you if you actually are onto something and they feel threatened by it, and they want to. And like you said, it's just ad hominem attacks. It's just like smack talk. It's not anything.
It's sophisticated science gossip. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
it's sophisticated science gossip. It's academic bullying. They use the academia like as if they ever agree on anything, or if they ever have the settled science on anything. You know, they're always like coming up with new shit. Oh, well, we used to think it was this. Now we think it's this.
Oh yeah, like every month in National Geographic or Time or Wired or something. You know, they always say that. Like, we used to think this, but now we know this. Oh, really? Do you really know now? Are you sure?
Yeah, you're done, right? You're no more going back to the lab, no more research because we're finished, right? Yeah. Like, that's it. I mean, and if you push them like that, of course they're going to be like, yeah, well, we never stop. Well, okay, then good, fine. Then maybe this guy could actually be correct then in his thinking. You know, or maybe some of these things, the practice of, or the art of healing is actually something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years that people actually knew about. Oh, but people used to die and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, it's like, well, I mean, that was before we had sanitation. That was before we had a lot of these other things.
That was before they didn't like have refrigerators to refrigerate the vaccines that they. I mean, not saying that the vaccines are so bad, but I mean, like, they didn't even have like refrigeration and, you know, for certain foods and things that all these methods that we have now that are very advanced at either keeping germs at bay or killing germs. You know, they didn't have like people, but even to me that's become more apparent too. If you look at when you see like Bill Gates like hugging like black children in third world countries and shit, you know, like if you look in the background, they're like living at a dump.
Yeah,
they're like they don't have water, clean water. You know, it's just obvious. And this is how before, you know, systems were implemented in the United States and other parts of the first world. This is how we live too.
Right.
You know, which is really gross. I'm glad I'm in this time.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not like,
Yeah, and I wonder, too, like, how much was that when we were still living in rural areas and things like that, or versus, like, when everybody started to create cities and, you know, hospitals and places like that without cleaning and washing their hands and without being sanitary. You know, how much did the lifespan shorten once we started doing all of that? So I mean, there's a lot of questions about that, but there certainly is no question about the fact that vaccines didn't eradicate any diseases, and that's evident by the historical evidence and the statistics. So it doesn't, you know.
What's even more suspicious, too, when you go to the CDC website, they only show, like a decade or a little more before the vaccine. They never show, like, all the way to, like, the 1700s or whatever.
Right.
They never go back that far.
Oh, my God. There was this one lady. She had this article that said, the chart that should make anti-vaxxers ashamed of themselves. And that was the title of her article. And the chart was basically a before and after. Like, in 1960, this was the rate of measles. In, 2015, this is the rate of measles. It's like, that's it? You don't show the timeline, you don't show the curve, you don't show when it stopped, you don't give us any statistics. It's just a before and after. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And people are going, oh, and the comments are people that are agreeing with her, like, yeah, look at that. And I'm like, are you guys serious? Do you know? I mean,
they just want to win, though. That's the thing. That's the mentality. People just want to be, like, on the winning team and win and be, with what's cool. Like, the people are still caught in that mentality. It's sickening, Yeah. It's sickening. And I think, I think I mentioned I drove this one lady to the hospital, and we were talking about this stuff, and she was actually very nice. She was really, she didn't agree with me, but she was very respectful about it, so I can't get too mad at her. But I was basically going to, like, drop her off at the hospital, and she was saying that she had, like, blood cancer and, like, a couple of other health problems, and she was tremendously, like, overweight, and I'm just like...
Yeah.
God, like, it's too bad you're not open to this shit, because you'd definitely be much healthier.
Right.
I didn't tell her that, but she was just very like, oh, well, what is it? Homeopathy is, it's pseudoscience, and, and it's like, oh, God, okay, fine, go to your fucking doctor that's just going to pump you full of chemo and make you sicker and kill you more, if that's what you want. Okay. Like...
Yeah. No, I know. People are just afraid to, like... It's like we've all been brainwashed to think that it's going to be... It's painful and you have to, like, have all these side effects and all these things to get cured or to get better. And, well, I mean, and no one actually gets cured is the other thing, too, you know? I was on Dr. Rima's show, and she made that comment. She was like... I think I said something about, well, pharmaceutical drugs, they don't have to have that high of a recovery rate. She goes, the recovery rate is 0. It's not high at all. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh, well, right. That's what I meant. I mean, what I meant was they don't have to show that much improvement. It don't have to be like, it's not even, sometimes it's below 5%. It's like almost nothing. And they'll still approve the drug.
Oh, what?
But,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's awful.
Yeah, they'll approve the drugs in such a super, super low level.
Just like I said, I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Right. No, it's okay.
Just like I said, I didn't even know that. I'm sure people that aren't even bothering to research further are like, oh, well, if it's approved, then it must be okay. Like, it must have a good recovery rate, because otherwise they won't approve it.
And if it's not approved, then it must not work. So it's the other thing, too, that, they'll say, well, unless the FDA says that it's all right. So it's like they're always looking for this sort of stamp of approval, the seal of approval from someone that they consider above them. It's like, they're giving them the power of God. You're a doctor, you've got a degree, so you must have the stamp of approval. You're in the government, you have a stamp of approval. Now I believe what you say. You're mainstream media, if it's alternative, if it's considered alternative media, it must not be true. They don't have the resources, or they don't have the references, et cetera, et cetera. But we do. We always have our citations and our references and all that all the time.
We always have more than enough.
We always have more. Yeah, I mean, all they generally do is smack talk. and they don't have anything to say. Like that lady's chart, it was a joke. I'm like, is that written by your 5-year-old?
Oh,
like,
yeah. No, have you seen the chart? Somebody gave me that chart that shows the rise of autism compared with the rise of price of organic food purchases.
Right.
And it was funny because I was just like, yeah, don't you understand that people with autism can't eat, like, processed food and pesticide-ridden food, and that's why it went up at the same time?
Right.
I was just like, whoever did that, they just shot themselves in the foot. They were so retarded, you know?
It's true that, because once the rate of all these autoimmune disorders went up, the rate of purchasing of organic food went up. You know, and at one time, organic food, I mean, food was just organic. It wasn't like you had to go.
It wasn't like
it wasn't riddled with these pesticides at one time in history. And then all of a sudden, in the 1990s, they started making all these GMOs, and then by the 2000s, it was a big crazy mess. So it's when now it's important. And then once some of these documentaries came out and exposed all that, that's when everything started to go, oh, well, now it needs to be labeled organic because we don't trust what you're putting out there because you've been putting all these things out on the market without telling us. You know, when it was like, what was the first one? It was The Future of Food, or was it Millions Against Monsanto? It was one of those films that was first exposing that, like in the mid to mid 2000s, and starting to show how they had been approving this stuff or creating this stuff in the 90s, and then they started putting it out into the market. And I'm like, ugh. When I first saw that, I was shocked. I didn't know. Years ago, I remember watching that stuff. I didn't know about a GMO. I didn't know probably until, close to 8 or 9 years ago that, you know, GMO. It was first when I saw this documentary that I was like, and so then the rate of or the purchasing of organic food went up because we had to, because we couldn't trust anybody to give us actual food. You know, it became a necessity. So it's I mean, there's a lot of reasons that the rate of selling of organic food went up, but it's just so funny. People are they try and use that comparison, like, oh yeah, so organic food caused it. Yeah, no, because explain to me how biologically that would make sense. You know. Explain to me how that would actually, but we can explain how vaccines can cause neurological damage, you know? Yeah. There's a science behind that. But they don't have an authority figure to tell them that, so. But they do, I mean, but that's the other thing, too. I know. There are doctors or people who... But then they'll go to Quackwatch and they'll be like, oh, look, well, it says on Quackwatch this guy's a quack, so they're uncredible. Like... I got into it one time with this guy that was, it was funny, he was talking about GMOs and how GMOs are good for the earth. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I sent him a bunch of stuff, and I sent him, I think the documentary Seeds of Death, and I was like, you can watch this, and then you can go and you can, you know, check and do more research, you know, on your own if you can write some of the people down and stuff. So he watched it on high speed, and then like during the middle of it, he's like, oh, well, these people are uncredible. I'm like, according to who? Right, according to who, yeah. You know? Like, that's the thing is, too, people are just lazy. Well, I think people are overwhelmed. I think we talked about this a lot. Yeah. I mean, some people are overwhelmed, and some people are just, people like that are just lazy, or they're quick to write someone off because they call that person uncredible. But then if they actually look at where this so-called uncredible person is getting their data, they'll find that it's usually from the source. It's usually the CDC, it's usually the pharmaceutical companies, it's usually Monsanto themselves that actually, once they have done their research, I mean, when we research their own data, a lot of times they give themselves away, you know, and they say it right there, but then they end up concluding that it's still safe. Oh, totally. I've read things like that too, which is interesting. They'll be like, okay, well, during this study, more people actually got the disease that they were vaccinated for, but vaccination is the best way to prevent against disease. I'm like, what? Right. It's a double. Like, huh? they'll just do double talk. They just run in a circle. You know, they start off with, this is how we're going to conduct the study. This is what we're going to be looking for. We want to see if this is safe and if it works and so on and so forth. And then they go through the study and then they go, okay, well, this number of people actually contracted the disease and this number of people actually, got sick and died and this number of people had Guillain-Barré syndrome and this number of people, but some of these people contacted us after we were recording data. So even though we're writing it down, it doesn't count. So we don't actually know if that's what caused it because blah 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 blah. And then they go. So in the end, it's good, it's safe, it's effective. Where? When? You know, but you might still contract the disease. It's not a guarantee. So you still have to wash your hands and live a healthy lifestyle. So they're basically saying like, well, we know you have the only way to safeguard yourself against disease is to wash your hands and be sanitary and live a healthy lifestyle. But yet we're going to call that quackery. And you still have to get a vaccine. Why? Why should I get it? When you tell me right flat out that you don't know if it works and that I still have to do all these other things to maintain, a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
It's ridiculous. Have you seen somebody put together that consent form? It's like a meme that's gone around. It's like a consent form, and it basically tells all the facts about vaccines, and then at the bottom it has, if you want to sign, if you still want, knowing all this information, if you still want to get your child vaccinated, please sign at the bottom. So I posted that, and then one of my friends was like, well, what is the reference for that? And it was like 5 years of research. And I put some links down there. I'm like, go do your own fucking research. Just do it,
I've seen that, and it's genius. It's so good. It's just, you can get it in a PDF form and print it out and send it to, and give it to your doctor. I think it's, unless you're talking of a different PDF form. I just pulled it up, the one that I'm talking about, or the one I think you're talking about. It's called Physician's Warranty of Vaccine Safety. I, physician's name, am a licensed physician, practice in the state of blah, 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 blah. I have a thorough understanding of the risks and benefits of medication that I prescribe to administer my patients, in this patient's case, whom I'm examined, recommended vaccines. So the following list said risk factors and vaccinations that protect them against, blah, blah, blah. And then it just goes on to say, I am aware that the following fillers, aluminum hydroxide, aluminum phosphate, aluminum sulfate, aluminum, and it just keeps going. It's like the whole list of all the ingredients that are in there, and it just continues and continues. It's genius. So basically saying they know that, and then it goes on to say, and I also am aware of the fact that it's contaminated with simian virus 40, which is known to cause cancer, et cetera, and you make the doctor sign it. So rather than you having to sign off saying you've been given the pros and cons of vaccination, you still refuse to do it, you have to give them this document and say that they are fully aware of the fact that these things are containing all these toxins, all these neurotoxins, all these cancer-causing agents, and that they're going to give it to you anyway. So it's hot. It's great. You guys should all go out and get it and give it to your doctor right away. So it's just be on the offensive. I think that's the idea. Be on the offensive, not on the defensive. Because why are we defending ourselves when we're the ones? If we're the anti-vaxxers, then we're not doing anything, right? That's a non-action. So why should we defend ourselves? They're the ones that want us to do it. So they're the ones who have to sell that to us. So whatever, sell it. Tell me that it's good and that it's safe, and show me where that it says that the data's not there. So. Too bad for you. But anyway, it was great having him on. I'm really glad he mentioned Dr. Humphrey's book, and cause that's a good place to start. If you haven't looked into this, just read that, and you'll know the whole history was buried, and they lied about everything, about the vaccines working, and that. And
her book has about, I would say, at least 800 like medical journals and articles and stuff. So, I would like to see somebody debunk all 800. You'd have to debunk all 800 for references in order to, to make a. I don't see how that can be done.
It's impossible because she went to the sources. She went to the medical journals. She went to the CDC. She went to all of their records.
Yeah.
They have it all in there. They just bury it and they lie. They just come out and just give us flat out lies about it. And they just bury the history. There was a really great article not that long ago that said, it was titled something like, "Sorry, folks, but the anti-vaxxers are the historians."
Yeah.
Because we've done the historical evidence. We've gone back and looked at it, and these things, and even now, even in mainstream, every now and again, we have these outbreaks, and it'll say right in the article, "Oh, outbreak amongst the vaccinated."
Yeah, there's that province in Zhejiang, China. Plus, in China, I think in general just has one of the highest compliance for vaccinations for measles. At least I know. I'll just speak on measles. I just know for measles. I don't know about their other stuff, but they're constantly having outbreaks. In a highly vaccinated population. So.
Oh, dude, I was looking at the health assessments for all the states in the country, and the states with the highest vaccination rate have the poorest, lowest ratings of health. And they'll always put that as it's a positive, because they'll give you like pros and cons of what the state's doing, right? So the ones at the bottom of the list, that are in like the 40s and that are the lowest ratings, are all like pros, high vaccination rate. And then the healthiest states, the cons are always low vaccination rate. Like that, like it's a con, but aren't they getting the fact that the healthiest states have the lowest vaccination rates and vice versa?
Yeah.
It's so hysterical. It's like, just go check it out. They give it away. They give it away, folks. It's like it's not even that hard, But anyway, we're out of time, so we're going to go ahead and close out the show with peace, truth, and love, and a big thank you to Dr. Jack.